Welcome to the July Business Insights Online Network interview. This month, Pete Allison will be chairing a Q&A debate and is joined by Becky Wright of Dryad Gin and Tom Filer of Family Adventure Group. So hi again, Pete, over to you.
Thanks, Guy. And for those of you who are on screen here or look at the recordings afterwards, as you're aware, every time with Business Insights, we try and cover some ground that we're either covering at the shows or just some really interesting business stories or something that allows some of our friends to share some insights and wisdom and thoughts in possibly a little deeper way than can always happen when we're busy just talking and networking and doing the things we do. So today, as Guy just said, we're talking to Tom and Becky, and I'll let you guys introduce yourselves in a second properly. This is it's a little bit different, I think, from the discussion that these same guys are going to have live on the ground in Taunton when we're at the Somerset Business Show on the 2nd and 3rd of October. But it will be a similar sort of territory of area. And one of my colleagues, Al Rich, will be chairing that discussion down there. So if you like hearing about what Tom and Becky have been up to, then join us live at the conference centre in October. So, okay, first things first, let's let you introduce yourself. Becky, would you like to just say hello to everyone and just give us a bit of a feel for who and what you are and what the business is?
Yeah, sure. Before I became a gin distiller, I was actually a psychotherapist for 38 years and really got into the mental health field. But it's the commercialization really of mental health that's grown massively with private contractors. And I started to feel that we weren't really making a difference, not in the way that we should be. And it kind of led me, I think like many people, just led me to think about, well, what else could I be doing? And after spending 37 years working with misery and people, to be honest, on their worst days, I personally needed a breath of fresh air. So that really took me into just retraining in something completely different, which is what led me into gin distilling. So I run Dryad Gin. I also still run my old business, New Leaf Life Design, and I run a community interest company called Love Community, who do some great work in the community. Basically, nothing that we could do in the mental health service, we were able to do through the CIC. So that's doing some interesting projects. So that's a little bit about me.
Fabulous. We'll find out a lot more about you in a second. Tom, can I ask you just to introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit, you know, what's the business about and what's that you're there, and we'll go into that in a minute. Just introduce yourself.
Yeah, of course. So I'm Tom. I'm CEO of the Family Adventures Group. So we're a group of indoor play sites and also children's day nurseries as well. Kind of, idea really came from, had nothing to do with the industry before we went into them. But my wife and I set up back in 2019, and we were, wanting to do things a little bit differently. So had a young child of our own and wanted really to set up an indoor leisure site and make sure we had a place to take our child that then turned into children, and that's kind of where the idea started, and then it expanded into nurseries, really wanting to do something differently that focused on those parents.
Brilliant. So that's a great inspiration for starting a business. You've both got businesses that have started relatively recently. Your inspiration there is obviously having a young child, but there must be more to it, because if everybody who had a young child started a business, we'd be overrun by play centres. So what actually took you from that thought that said, I've got a young child I want to go, hey, we could do this? What was that interaction that made you start the business?
I mean, I kind of describe it to a lot of people as my quarter-life crisis. It was kind of a moment in time where I'd come to the end of, the natural kind of point in my career that I could do something. I come to the end of a job I was doing previously with a private equity-backed company in finance, and had a bit of time off, and was looking for the next opportunity. So it all kind of fitted together quite well on that side of things. I think for me it was. We've always had a strong drive. 2019 we set up just before COVID. It wasn't a great time. Within 8 months we were possibly closed, and nearly found ourselves closed for the whole of COVID, because Westminster didn't really understand what indoor play was, or the benefits that it could bring to children. I think, for us going through that journey about, looking at our purpose as an organisation, the value that we bring to our societies is really important.
Brilliant. Yeah, no, so you set a business up. That's great. Becky, just that same question to you. You're there, one day you're doing whatever you do with New Leaf and then go, I know what, I'll start a gin company. Oh, I'm sure it wasn't quite that simple. What took you to that place?
It was actually the death of my mother. I was in COVID. I think a lot of us lost people very, very close to us, and I felt I'd like to do something in her legacy. She was an avid gin drinker, but alongside that, she was a woman who believed in bringing people together, and she was always running something in the community. Whatever you name it, she was sort of running it. And I've always had that in me to do, but I think that gave me the extra push. I thought it would be a lovely thing to do in someone's name, to actually have a bottle of gin that has her name on it. And as part of her leaving us, it felt like the start of a new chapter, and I think it helped me with that process as well. So just doing something completely different, I think, is really good for the mind and the spirit. It really is.
That's a really interesting start point for a business, and a good one, but it's possibly not the normal one, but that's a good start. But that segues nicely onto my next question, and I'll stay with you for this one. As you start the business and you look at the development now, social value is something which, as a business community across everywhere, where we see people coming to different levels of understanding about, and different levels of significance. Clearly, you've expressed social value right there in how you started it, but actually in business terms, how did you think specifically about social value and what the business would do and where it would go with that?
Yeah, so one of my businesses is a B Corp, so I've been very involved in looking at social value for many years, but community engagement definitely sits at the heart of my ethos. We had before the gin was launched, we had a plea from our local village hall that said, you either use the village hall or you lose it. We're going to have to close down after COVID. So we actually started a pop-up pub before the gin was even ready. And on our opening night, I catered for 35, 40. We had 95 people rock up, because I live in a very isolated place. Tom will know it well. The Quantocks are, very rural, full of farming communities. There's no community hubs here. So the pub we called the pub the Dryad Inn. So you've got Dryad Inn and Dryad Gin, and now it's become a thing. So now people come from all over just to come to the pop-up pub, which is great. So we use local suppliers. That sits very much at the heart of what I do. We ask our suppliers to also be locally sourced, and we set criteria for that. That feels very important. And we've got a massive environmental sustainability ethos. So everything from our pension scheme right the way through to our bank has to be ethical and sustainable. All of our wind power generates the business, so we use only green energy, and we give 5% of all of our income to Somerset beekeepers.
Brilliant.
So we build beehives for newly trained and qualified beekeepers, and we pay for their mentoring for a year as well. So it really, I have to be honest, it really does sit, and it's where the business has grown from.
And it's great to hear that story, because there's a lot of businesses we talk to, and I talk to certainly, who strive, who aspire to have some of those values. But of course, if you're making paper clips somewhere or doing whatever you do, sometimes it's really difficult. Actually, what you're demonstrating, what you're telling us there, is right from the start point. The thinking is, how do we do this? And it's a social enterprise exercise in its own right. That's brilliant. Tom, when you set Family Ventures up, did social impact, social value, did that figure in your thinking as you were doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's evolved over time, and I think we've kind of worked out a bit more where we can really have impact with our social values. So, we are one of the big, on the leisure side, one of the biggest providers of the holiday activity and foods program across Somerset for children, free school meals. We run Send sessions, being part of our community and being, not just being in it, but being a part of that community and being a real asset within it has been super important on that side. On the nursery side, we offer bursaries we get to see some of the best examples of parenting, some of the worst examples of parenting as well within our nurseries. We've got over 1,000 children now on roll, and so being able to offer things like bursaries to support families that are really in need or going through crises is really important to us. And I suppose we've built that and we've evolved that now into a structure where we've really got the three key pillars that everything is founded on, which are our communities, our families, that go to our nurseries and visit our leisure sites, and our people that we work with as well. So for us, it's something that was there at the beginning, but over time has just grown. And I think society has moved along that journey as well. And when we look at businesses now, it's very, if we were to set up a business today, I think we would have had purpose far more at the heart of what we were doing, because I think that's where society has moved on. And for us, it's been this journey that we're really excited to, and you're really privileged to be on.
Well, that's great to hear, and I think we do see, certainly, again, we have the privilege of working across a lot of sectors and scales of business, and I agree. I think there's a society, or at least a significant part of it, has moved on and become very much aware of that. And if anything, it creates the very obvious differentials that are beginning to appear in the business world. And Becky alluded earlier to B Corp, which is for those of you who aren't aware, it's a very significant. The word I'm looking for here is you affiliate to B Corp, and you've got credentials about what you're doing, and that's it's no small thing to get into the B Corp realm, but that is becoming a very, very significant thing. But even if you don't go down to the depths of B Corp, actually understanding why you're doing it and what you're doing, relationally, when we develop business and when we start motivated recruiting, retaining, or even selling to clients, it comes back to that really old simplistic thing. People like to buy from people, not be sold to. And actually it matters getting to know people and what they actually stand for. So brilliant. Now look, you're both working in areas where you will have competition, because it's not as if you're doing the one unique thing that's happening anywhere. So another aspect of setting up a business is understanding what your unique prospects are. Now, some of that will be built into the answers, the things you've already been telling us. But I wonder, when you again took that moment and said, "Okay, we're going to do this," what was the unique bit of that actually said we can do this because this will work on that basis? Tom, do you want to take that one first?
Yeah, absolutely. So we set out firstly with our indoor play site, and we set out to do things a bit differently and to offer a slightly higher end experience. Fast forward now to our leisure sites have all got the Visit England Rose, which they've been awarded, and they've also the number one of their local things to do in their local areas. So we really try and set ourselves and set out our stall based on that higher end offering and offering a high quality experience. That translates over to the nurseries as well. We offer a really decent education and some really good levels of care compared with our competitors, and we also offer a lot of information back to our parents as well, because we know that's what they want, so they can continue the learning, or at least be part of that journey when they're delivering, when they're interacting with their child at home. So for us on both sides, it was going for that higher quality end of things, and we've got on the nurseries, that's borne out by the fact that we are a top 20 nursery group in the UK as well, rated for by parents as well. So for us, those external recognition for us is just a demonstration of the fact that we're aiming for that higher end, higher quality of offering.
It's obviously working for you on the basis you've obviously got several opportunities going, so you've been able to grow from one thing into another. Becky, there are gym producers all around the place, and there are pubs all around the place. Now we know a little bit of why you sort of saw the opportunity, but just expand on that for a minute. What actually gave you the thing that made you do it?
Oh, it's such a weird one, isn't it? Because I found out the other day that there's more gin companies in the Southwest than anywhere else. And I was thinking, that wasn't a very wise business decision, was it really? But yeah, but they're dull. gin companies are generally very, very dull. They have very little story, or their story is just kind of, it's not that exciting. I think what we've got going for us for the competition, one is we don't have one of these great big stills that we have to power up and pay for. And we haven't put that investment in that way. What we do is we borrow other people's stills when they're not using them. So I love the fact that we've kind of gone in the back door really and made use of environmentally as well stills that already exist. But that does go against the grain of gin distilling. People don't like that generally. Other distillers don't like it. They like you to have your own still and have your own premises. So I'm aware we've done that differently. And then we've been giving people these incredible experiences. I don't think we do need more gin. I think what we need is experiences that allow us to feel connected to ourselves, but also our place, whatever that place is. So we started taking people out on botanical walks. Well, I don't know anyone else who's doing that. And we took them into the forest, and we've actually managed to attach to these sound things to different plants in the forest. And so we can actually play the botanicals, literally. So we've been doing that, and people absolutely love it. And we've been giving people, when they come to the Dryad Inn, we've been trying to give them a transformative experience. So rather than make a pina colada, I'm just saying that because it's National Pina Colada Day today. You know, that's quite dull. We all know what a pina colada is. What we do is we get woodland herbs that we forage, and then we make them into syrups, and then we combine those with Dryad gin. So you're having something very different, really, a very different offering. And I think that really does allow us to stand out from other gin distillers. And that, I haven't even started on the story and what the story is all about. So, yeah, it's quite exciting.
It's really important to tell the story. I mean, life is about storytelling.
It is.
You know that, absolutely. Who knew it was Pina Colada Day? I don't know, you or not me, but there you go, there you go. Look, that brings us very neatly on to actually thinking about the brand and the brand identity and what brand stands for. I mean, anybody who's gone through the process of setting up a business, most people will have thought about the brand. And a lot of people, when they think about the brand, think about a logo and a picture. And any good sort of brand ident person will say, yes, but it's not just that, is it? It's Jeff Bezos saying, you know, what they'd say about you when you left the room and that kind of thing. So Becky, just staying with you for a second, when you were thinking about the brand and what the brand would stand for, I mean, we've heard you talking about a lot of that already, but what was the actual thought process in that?
Well, we wanted a story that sat at the centre. And where I live, there's lots of mythology attached to the hills. So we looked at some interesting characters in history and interesting drinking characters, but I wanted it to be not always necessarily human. I like the idea of it kind of being a part human, part non-human. So we've actually used a centaur as our central figure because in history they were drunkards. They didn't really have a very good reputation, but what they were, there was one particular one called Chiron who was a polymath. He was a botanical expert, and there's some beautiful stories around him. He was like the son of Apollo. So we had this kind of centaur clip-clopping through the Quantocks, and he fell in love with the Dryad. So the Dryad is the spirit that lives in the tree. And they started this very beautiful kind of love affair. And we got 8 local artists involved right from the beginning who started to draw the story. So we created the story of this love between the two. Now, a Dryad can't leave a tree because the tree will die. So you have quite a fraught love affair. And we spent a lot of time trying to find a way to kind of show that in the bottle. So there's this sort of very beautiful centaur falling in love with a lovely little Dryad. And we did it deliberately so you can't see it very well. So it's a bit of a kind of portal between this world and the next. And to add to that, we, with our Dryad, the actual name, the A in the Dryad is actually a door. So we created a doorway from this world into the next world and hinted at how the tree spirit can actually take you through that portal. And if you come into the pop-up pub, we then play on that idea that you're stepping into a different space. So inside the pub, we've got tablecloths that have old Somerset sayings on them, but also we've got mushrooms everywhere. So on the tables, all the way around. So it's a bit kind of like stepping into Alice in Wonderland, like you're about to kind of have this sort of potion. And we've played with that with the cocktails as well that we do. So I just want you to know that there's layer upon layer. I mean, we went copper to do a hint towards the stills, because of the copper stills that the gin relates to. We've hinted at the mushrooms around the bottom of the bottle, and we're looking at making our next batch using Dryad saddle mushroom, which isn't hallucinogenic, I just need to say.
Fantastic. You just had to put that in the end, just in case, you know. I get it.
It's easy to say. Okay, people go, you're making gin from magic mushrooms. No, we're not. We're not.
Two for the price of one. There you go.
Yeah.
Tom, over to you. Very, very different concept. I'm reasonably confident. I doubt you were referring to woodland beasts and centaurs. I did a lot of work for the centaur venue at Cheltenham Racecourse. I didn't know centaurs were associated with alcohol, but actually, if you've ever seen Cheltenham Racecourse on Gold Cup Day in the Centaur building, it's a really appropriate fit. Tom, your shout.
Yeah, so I mean, I can't compete with Becky's description there, but you know, we our brand for us is all about how our families feel when they interact with our brand. So it's really extensive when we look at brand, not just from logo, but just from everything that we do, the color palettes we use, everything. So I'm quite lucky to have a marketing and brand team that keep me on the right track for that, and you know, do a very good job around our brand. We're centered around the word adventure. That's really important to us, you know. So it's a, you know, adventure inspires things like play, which is for us incredibly important. Play for the children in the age range that we look at up to about 10. Play is one of the best forms of learning, development, exercise. It's everything to children. It's socializing. It covers everything. So for us, really focusing in on that word adventure. So our nurseries are called Little Adventures nurseries, and our leisure sites all have the word adventures or adventurers in them. So for us, it was really about keeping something all around that adventures brand, but yeah, with a much wider you know, brief around everything that we do has to go back to brand and how people feel when they interact with our brand in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, great. And that word adventures is a great word to use in a brand. I can see that absolutely, because you can go so many different places with it. So I think that's absolutely fab. So I'm interested from both of you. We do, when we look at how a business ecosystem works and develops, we do a little bit of work around thought leadership. And actually, when you know, thought leadership can take various different levels, and you know, we all know the sort of the talk type thing at one end, but actually thought leadership applies right down the line. You know, even the guy who buys the bucket and the ladder and sets up a window cleaning business on, you know, because he can. There's some thought leadership gone into why have you done that? What took you into that space to do something creative, something new, something different? I'm just interested. Did either of you or both of you, where did you go for that sort of thought leadership type? How am I going to do this business? Where am I going to go? Tom, staying with you for a second. Did you actually go and look for that thinking leadership? Tom, did you go anything with that?
I mean, yeah, I think for me, the thought leadership, I'm the type of person that on holiday, when I get some downtime, I'll probably be reading at least one business-based book, and that's how boring I am on holiday. It's the only time I can really get to read a book, and it will normally be a business-based book or something around new ideas, etc. So for me, that's where my thought leadership comes, and actually, you know, being, for me, the positions that I've got with you know, the associations that I'm involved with give me a real insight into the industries in which we operate in and work with. So it's through the likes of the FSB, which, you know, has been a real source of good advice for us in terms of, you know, looking at new things that are coming on the horizon, changes in politics, etc. That's actually going to then potentially look into how you run your business, or how you adapt and you change to upcoming changes. Has been really important, and working with other associations too is kind of where we've got the source of inspiration, and then translating that into what we're going to do as our strategy for our business has been where we've focused.
And using thought leadership to interpret the events going on around you when they're not your own specialist space. Politics is a really good and obvious example of that. We've all just had a belly full of that over the last 6 weeks, but what does it actually mean? Where does it take us, and all that kind of thing? And yeah, absolutely. Becky, you're in that thought leadership, it's putting a very grand word on things that happen fairly naturally usually, but actually it is worth sometimes just looking at what they really mean. Did you go anywhere with that thought leadership at the point when you started?
Yeah, so it won't surprise you to know I use kind of creativity as my main inspiration. So I use images. So I've got 2 images I use. This is one of them. It's called the Glyph of Siddhi, and it kind of reminds me that there are days when things stop and start. You know, you kind of follow the white line and you stop, start, stop, start. And there are other days where I feel I've got to kind of cut through everything. So that's the kind of sword that runs through the middle. And there are other days when I need to be more fluid. So then I work with the black lines and I think about the sort of fluidity I need. So that's one of my main images. That's a very ancient image that used to be on portals between this world and the next world. Ancient burial mounds it was drawn on. And then the other one I use is this one, which is it's actually the tree of life. The tree of life sits on top of a well. And one of the things I also do is I restore wells back to their former glory if they've sort of dried up. And then the third inspiration is music, always music. And my mate John Gard, who helps me, we did a song, a Dryad gin song. And I know that sounds corny, but I do listen to it quite a bit when I'm trying to come up with new brews or think about, because it's just such a beautiful song, and it's all about the journey really that we've all been through together, and it's also about the well that we restored together. So there's something quite amazing about that. And we've just started looking at creating through VR headsets a whole experience using that music as well. So I quite like that, combining the noise of the trees, mixing the tree sounds in with the other music. So that would be my inspiration. I don't find other gin distillers particularly inspiring, but my trainer, the guy who trained me, a guy called Jamie Baxter, I found him inspiring because he said I'd never manage it. He said, "You'll never make a gin out of oak bark. You just won't, Becky." And I did.
Brilliant. So sometimes that thought leadership can put the challenge in that we have to defeat as well.
Exactly. Excellent. Yeah. I love people telling me what I can't do. It's great.
Brilliant. So where do you see, we'll take the next question. Becky, we'll stay with you for a second. Where do you see your business in the next 3 to 5 years? You know, do you have a sense of that? Do you have a business plan? And if so, is it a strong one you really want to adhere to, or you a bit, you go with the flow with it a bit? What's your take on it?
I'm really rubbish at all of this. This will probably be my worst question. I did have a business plan in order to get a license, but since then I've kind of gone a bit off kilter on that one. I know that the gin has done very well in the awards. I've not entered it for the World Gin Award yet, just because it's too expensive, and I've not entered it for the San Francisco Spirits and Wine Association. I've not entered that one. They're about £800 each, so I've got to kind of work out if I can justify that. So I'd like to, because it's done very well in the local awards and that system. So I would like to do that. I'd like to enter it a bit more. I'd like Dryad Gin to be into some more restaurants. That would be something that would mean a lot to me if we could achieve that. And I'd like to grow the pop-up pub I do. We've just had one of the pop-up pubs we started in a village that didn't have a pub. It was really lovely. Those guys now want to run their own. And we're now supporting them to run their own pop-up pub, and there's something beautiful about that. So I'd like to do more of those, helping villages have the confidence to start their own, and for us to sort of support that process. But I don't know how I'm going to make a living out of selling this. because the margins are so small. It's unbelievable when you're a small distiller. So it's not going to be selling bottles of gin that is going to make me a living. No, it's going to be giving people experiences and doing events. That's what's going to work, I think.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And actually, sometimes I've seen it before, you know, the core thing that looks like what the brand really is not actually the thing which sustains the business. But, you know, it's the story, it's the splash, and the things that go on around it are what actually generate revenues. I get that. And you need a business plan, don't you? Tom, I'm going to stab a guess that you've got a bit more of an organised, structured approach to your next 3 to 5 years, especially when you're at the scale you are. Do you want to share anything with us on this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm for my sins. I'm a chartered accountant as I qualified. So the numbers are a bit and our business plan is probably quite significant actually. So in January this year we got private equity investment into our business from a group called Foresight, and that is going to grow us over the next 3.5, 4 years. It's going to about quadruple our size from where we currently are. I think going back to an earlier question that you asked around purpose and around social value, for us it was really important that we partnered with a firm that were going to value that in the same way that we do, so that we can still maintain our things like our bursary schemes and still maintain our working with our communities and the fundraising that we do around that side too. So for us, we've got a really significant growth ambitions to grow and to, as I say, to quadruple the size of the business, which is in itself a whole business plan, and as you can probably imagine, it involves recruiting and getting a really decent team around us, and growing our head office team, which we can then use to grow the rest of our business. So we are in this stage now of going from small business up to medium-sized business in quite a short amount of time.
So that's a fascinating thing in its own right, and something we haven't got enough time to explore at all, really. But I can see that quadrupling the size of a business like that is quite something. And the other thing, which is quite something, even in what you're saying there, is tying together social value and private equity are almost contradictions in terms. I realise not so. I realise there are plenty of private equity people around there who would value highly social value, but it's not a simple one, because when we deal with social value situations, you have the ESG directors in businesses and you have the financial directors in business, and you create this collision in the boardroom, because the ESG people are going to, to get the value-driven side out of that, they are going to take a hit on the bottom line. It's actually how you manage the hit, and that immediately goes wrong when you talk to the FD. So, take my hat off to you. It's quite a challenge. Okay, so look, we're wonderfully running over time here, but from both of you, what I'd love to hear is two things sort of rolled into one, just to keep us sufficient on time. I'd love to hear from each of you the worst thing that you've had to deal with since you started the business, and the best thing that you've had to deal with since you started the business, and then finally just a tip for anyone who was thinking about doing this mad thing called starting a business in their own right. Tom, do you want to take that first?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mentioned COVID earlier. I think we've probably spoken about COVID. That's probably the worst thing, but I'll probably give you the second worst thing that happened. And it happened just after COVID. Actually, it felt like everything came at once. But we had an unscrupulous software supplier that we were using who tried to bankrupt us, when we nearly, along our journey, through COVID and everything, the amount of times that I think, and this is probably not going to feed into your second part of the question too well, but actually, there are, when you go through the ups and downs of running a business and starting up a business, especially in the initial stages, things around cash flow and just managing your business in that stage can be really tough at times. And then when we had a lawsuit against us that we couldn't afford what they were anywhere near what they were coming after us for. That's probably one of the worst moments of our business journey so far, in the last 5 years. I think the best moments, I probably have best moments, all the time when I see that we've really made an impact with our families. So, I can't necessarily share the details on those because it's confidential, but I get my best moments probably every week when we see that, we've helped a family that are about to be taken into social services care that are no longer going to be taken into care because we've been able to support in that short term and provide a bit of a bridge. And that's probably for me the best moments that come in what we do, and that's what really gives me we talked earlier about what sparked that idea, but what keeps you going, because sometimes starting a business, you really need to enjoy it and you really need to have that passion for it, because otherwise there are going to be some tough times. You can see the stats on how many businesses don't survive in the initial stages. So to go into business, you have to really go into something that you enjoy doing, or that really gives you have a passion for, I think. Otherwise, you're just not going to be able to stick it out. And I think that's probably the second part of that question is probably that exact thing, that actually, go into something that you have that passion, make sure you have a passion for what you're doing.
Brilliant. Becky, what's your take on those questions?
Oh, it's a great question, isn't it? I mean, I think money was absolutely terrifying at the beginning. The guy who trained us said to run a gin business, you're going to need deep pockets. And I thought, it can't be that bad. But I mean, it was beyond what I had ever imagined. So the worst thing was the fear of having no money and having to find money, from just about everywhere, really. So that was definitely that was the bane of my life in the early stages. And just because I was really, there was such a lot I didn't know. I wasn't trained in what I had to learn enough, so I had to do a lot of self-study, and I found that quite challenging. But one of the best things was right at the beginning, one of the top local restaurants called Augustus just welcomed us with open arms, and he was just like, "This is brilliant, and this is the best gin I've tasted." I was like, "Wow!" Like you suddenly felt loved, just suddenly. And we also ended up in Ask Italian in Taunton as their community gin, which was just major. Suddenly we were in Ask Italian. So that was just such a lift to kind of counteract everything else that had happened.
Brilliant.
And I've been thinking about my top tip, okay? So my top tip is do not get rattled by your competitors, especially the ones who kind of, well, at the moment it's the Maiden, actually Maiden campaign that really annoy me. So these are the ones that are terrified that you're going to step on their territory. So I think you just got to find your own way to shine, and know that you're enough. I think that's quite important, to just have that memory of knowing you're enough, and have a cat. I noticed my colleague Guy's got a cat. I've got a cat. I tell you what, shoving your face in a cat on your worst day is one of the best things you can do, I think. And have a gin and tonic, obviously.
Brilliant. I'd go for dogs rather than cats. But
Are you dogs? Okay, no, I don't do dogs.
Listen, both of you, thank you so much. That's been really, really interesting. A great insight into a couple of businesses. Very briefly, because I know we're a little bit over time, has anyone got any questions they want to lob at Becky or Tom? Yeah, okay. Right, okay. Well, brilliant. In which case, Guy, back over to you.